Hello, everyone. My guest today is Manny Medina. He's the CEO of a company called Outreach, the #1 sales engagement platform. Before Outreach, he led Group Talent, which was Microsoft's Windows Phone business development team in Latin America and Canada. Before that, he engineered Amazon's compensation system for Amazon Associates, which is the web's largest and most successful affiliate business, and their web services, which accounts for about 15% of Amazon's traffic. He's got an MBA from Harvard Business School and MS in Computer Science from University of Pennsylvania. Manny, are you ready to take us to the top?
I am. I'm ready.
So Bezos is obviously always in the news, and I want to focus on Outreach for the majority of the show. But give us some quick insights. What makes this guy so successful? Is it some kind of discipline? Is he, really strict and mean like Steve Jobs? I mean, what did you see?
There's a number of things that he does, but he has a philosophy of running the business that I think is unique. The main two things are that there's no detail too small for him. And not only as part of being CEO and knowing the strategy and having the vision and where you're going, but also having the understanding and the empathy to get down into the lowest levels of your organization, into the deepest and darkest and most broken systems, and understand what makes them work and what makes them not work, and what can you fix right now and need to fix right now, and what can you punt. To have that kind of like ability to zoom in and out as a CEO, I think is a superpower.
Interesting.
And I model my own behavior after that particular superpower that he had, that he showed it in spades. His Monday morning or his Tuesday morning meetings that will last all day are colonoscopies on the entire business. He will go in and just be all up everybody's things and just understand his business to the very minute level. And we do the same thing here, in which it gives you a peace of mind and understanding that you have your entire head wrapped around everything. And I think that's very good. The second thing is for him, that his decision making is very crisp, and he's very principled in that respect, in that a no decision is a decision not to do something. And that's very important, because most people think that if you can't make a decision right now and you punt, that you're getting free time. And it's not true. When you decide to stay status quo, he thinks of it as a trade-off, in that you decided to long status quo and short the optionality of the future. You see what I mean?
Yep. And
you're doing it for a reason. So that crisis of thinking of like, there is no such thing as a free lunch, in which if you decide what you want, you're making a bet in your current system. If you're like to make a change, you're saying, look, the current system is not going to scale or it's not going to work, I'm going to go into the next one. But that is always a conscious decision. So that's one of the things I love about him, and that allows me to sort of like, do quick principle decisions on Outreach as well.
So take us now into Outreach. How do you describe yourself, and what's your revenue model? Are you pure play SaaS?
We are pure play SaaS. We are a sales engagement platform, which is a new category in sales. And what this does is that sales engagement sort of separates the two sort of core components of the sales stack. One is where you store your data, which is your CRM, where you build your lists, where you keep your accounts, where you keep your contacts, where you come in with your leads, and it sort of becomes this big bucketed repository of lead, account, and opportunity information and personal information. But you execute on that data somewhere else, meaning you're emailing, you're calling, you're sending calendar appointments, and then you're maintaining customer and taking it through the journey of finding out about you, purchasing your solution, and then being retained, maintained, and educated within your platform. We enable that wall-to-wall customer engagement that allows which allows then the rep to be more efficient with their time, because now the moment that you execute your activity outreach, meaning you send your emails and your voicemails and make your calls and send your calendar appointments, we're able to now compress time that takes to get to the same outcome. And that's what the important thing about Outreach is, that we allow you to increase your productivity as well as compress time, which gives you sort of significant leverage on that resource. And that's what our.
And so give me a general sense of customer size. What would you say the average customer will pay you per year? Are we talking, $1,000, $10,000, $1 million? So
the price of Outreach varies depending on whether you have calendaring or voice along with it. And it varies anywhere between $120 to $140 per month
per seat.
And the majority of our customers have sales teams of they start at around 20 to 30 seats, and they go up from there. That's sort of the mean. We have as customers are large as CenturyLink or General Electric. MindBody, Splunk, customers of that ilk. Capital One. It's a very broad, diverse set of customers. And if you think about it, if you have a rep that is facing a customer, you need outreach. It's the way you think about us. There will always be a communication and a workflow to what your rep does that can be optimized and can be made better. And that's where we come in.
And so now that we kind of understand what you do, an average kind of deal size, et cetera, take me back to the beginning. Did you decide to leave Amazon and jump right into outreach? Where was your brain at that point?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was at Microsoft and I was peddling the last version of Windows Phone. And as you,
that's not a good way to say it. That says, well, I didn't enjoy doing this. I felt like I was peddling,
Well, because nobody felt great about it. And it was one thing after the phone itself was a great product, but we could not crack the market that was, slowly being monopolized, away from BlackBerry right into Apple and Android. And Microsoft sort of tried to throw resources at this problem with a grander vision that there will be no sort of winning a form factor in terms of size, that the phone is just, one smaller device than a tablet, which is one smaller device than a bigger tablet, which is one smaller device than a laptop, which is one smaller device than a PC. So they approach the problem comprehensively, and they sort of missed the boat around like, no, the phone needs to be fucking great, and that's where it ends. So they went against this larger strategy that now you see they're peeling back by selling off Nokia and et cetera, and sort of getting back to first principles and being a real software company.
So that led to Outreach. What year was that? When did you launch Outreach?
No. Actually, that led to Group Talent. So first of all, I quit. I didn't quit with a great idea. I just said to myself, these are the best, most productive years of my life.
How old were you?
I was, that was almost 10 years ago. So I was almost 40. So I guess it was a midlife crisis. Instead of getting a Harley, and changing my life significantly, I just decided to quit and start a company. And what I did is I sort of went back to coding, and I started hanging out with the Seattle low life that is starting to start companies, right? So we will gather at this bar and meet other founders and kind of do hackathons and code the ideas that we had in our head. And then in that process, I met Andrew Kinzer, who was roughly doing the same thing. And so we decided to, with a small group, to apply to Techstars with a different idea than what you have right now. And during Techstars, we met Gordon and Wes, who are my other two co-founders.
At Outreach?
And that started Group Talent.
Group Talent.
So Group Talent was what is now Hired, or was a competitor to Hired. It was a marketplace, but it ended up being just a glorified agency for talent. And what we tried to solve the recurring problem by using technology. So we said that we argued that we would have a leg up if we were to create better matching algorithms between companies and individuals, that if we were to create better profiles for developers and engineers and so forth. And that was our hypothesis going into the market. That hypothesis did not work. But what we did learn is that there was sort of demand for hiring. And if we were just to capture that demand, we will make money and not go broke. So we had this seminal moment around when we had 2 months of cash left in the bank that we need to sell our way out of.
Which was how much? Like 60 grand?
It was around 50 grand.
50 grand, okay.
It was probably a little bit less, but roughly that. We were paying ourselves very little. And what we decided to do was to build an engine that would allow us. We had a small group of 2 salespeople that will build an engine that will allow those 2 salespeople to a team of 20. And when I say that, is the means generate enough meetings for all of us that we can turn into opportunities and then into close sales. So we went back and we analyzed what gets to a meeting the fastest. And we found out that we built something that does that, right? One is it allows you to follow up, and it creates an avenue for quick personalization. And when you put those 2 together, you can take a team of 2 and turn them into a team of 20 because they can execute so much faster and generate the meetings. As we were generating these meetings, the people to whom we set up the meetings were way more interested in the tool that we used to get that meeting than what we were selling. And as I get into,
was that just a cold email? What was the outreach?
It was a cold email.
Okay.
So it was 2 components. It was a cold email that had a one-liner personalization, which allowed us to then hire writers and pay them per email so that we can scale faster the personalization. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it would allow, and then the machine will do a lot of the follow-ups that would say, hey, I know you're super busy. I was wondering if you saw this. here's an article, etc. So a lot of the files were automated, and a lot of the first emails were personalized. And so what we found out is that we would get 45 to 50% reply rates on cold emails.
It's amazing. And what year was this, Manny?
This is in 2014.
Okay.
So in 2014, we built this engine, and we're digging our way out of this thing. And people were not buying our recruiting services, and they were really saying, "Hey, can I just use your platform to do my work?" And that was sort of the seminal moment of like, all right, maybe we need to change the business.
So do you pivot, or do you clean the cap table, shut the company down, and restart from scratch?
That's another great question. So we pivoted, and the reason we pivoted is because you don't shit where you eat. And we're Seattleites. We raised our funds from local individuals, and those people betted on us. They didn't bet on Group Talent.
How much had you raised at that point?
About $1.5 million.
And what are you at today in terms of total raised?
60 million.
Yeah. So good. So those people are still on the cap table today, unless there was a secondary or something.
They're very much in the cap table. But now here's the trick, right? So for your listeners, is that when you're pivoting and you're running out of money at the same time, it's really hard to go and bring in new investors. So especially because people say, your cap table is dirty, you're going to get diluted. There's all these dynamics that you sort of have to navigate through. What we did is that we built the initial version of Outreach, and then we sold a note at a significant discount from the previous valuation.
Okay.
That allowed new investors.
You mean the cap was a discount to the previously priced round?
Correct. The cap on the note was a significant discount from the previously priced round. And then what that allows us is to go out to market with a new value prop that seemed very cheap to new investors, especially because a lot of my raise for Outreach, I did it in Silicon Valley, where to get into a company, you're paying just to talk to the entrepreneur. You're looking at $10 million valuations, even though the entrepreneur has at least a finger.
Yep.
You see what I mean? So we can come in with a $4, $5, $3 million valuation.
You look sexy.
What's that?
You look sexy then.
To look very sexy when you have working product, a team of entrepreneurs that are already been through hell and back, and the valuation is really low. So that allows you to sort of get momentum on the note, and we raised. So I sold the first 100 customers of Outreach door to door in the Soma in San Francisco, and I raised my first $400,000 of new capital, walking the streets around Soma and meeting a lot of angels in that area, because that area also has a ton of angels.
That's amazing. Real quick, Manny, just quickly, because we're running out of time, the customer count. So you got your first 100 door to door. I love that. It sounds like you dual executed and got investors doing the same thing. What have you scaled customers to today? Give us a general sense of size.
Well, we have now 2,200 customers. We have a sales team of around 30 account executives and 20 SDRs, et cetera. So now we're a bigger, proper operation. Yep. I'm not selling door to door anymore to small accounts. selling AT&Ts and Capital Ones of the world. So we're now significantly larger in that respect.
And Manny, just to be clear, you said earlier that on average these 2,200 logos are putting 20 to 30 seats a pop, just I imagine in first year ACV, and then you've got $140 ARPU. So you guys are doing well. We're doing north of $6 million a month now at that point, right? At this point, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. Have you broken 10 million a month, or you think you'll do it this year?
We will do it. We will do it this year. That's great.
And break down the team for me. So you see, I want to understand the differentiation between engineering and sales. How many total on the team?
It's roughly. So we don't consider sales because when you're a SaaS business, the majority of your sales are expansions, especially when you're a land and expand operation like we are. So our go-to-market team is almost half sales and half success.
Okay.
And the other half of the company, if you would, or the other sort of like third of the company is product and engineering, R&D in general. And then the engineering has both product, design, machine learning, and software development.
And how many total team members?
The company is 250 people.
All based in Seattle?
About 120 of them in Seattle.
And the rest are remote?
There are a few of them in San Francisco in the Bay Area. Yeah. And then the majority of the AEs are in our target markets.
Oh, interesting. Okay, good. So 250 people. And then talk to me about growth. So you're north of 6 million today. I mean, what are you growing at year over year right now?
So last year we posted over 150% growth year over year. That's
great.
We've been doubling every year.
That's great. So you recall, go back 12 months from today, that means you're doing about what, 2.8 million per month, and you've more than doubled now today.
So we hit the numbers that I can give you. We went from 0 to $10 million in AR in two years.
2015 to 2017.
2015 to 2017. That's right. And then being over well over doubling every year since, and that sort of continues to be the run rate at which we operate.
That's great. And just to be clear, sorry, you said you'll break 10 million a month. You think this year, by the end of this year?
Oh, well before then.
Well before the end. That's fun. I mean, if you went from 0 to 10 million in ARR in the first 2 years, and now you're telling me you're going to break 10 million per month, right? I mean, that's incredible growth.
Per quarter.
Okay. I was going to say, okay, good. So 10 per quarter. So call it, what is that? 3,300, 3.3 per month. That's still really healthy. Talk to me about some other economics in a SaaS business. So you mentioned expansion revenue. Churn is obviously critical. Tell me about your churn.
So actually, let me tell you about something else, because you can hear about churn and CAC ratios and magic numbers and rule of 40s. Like all this shit is available to the public, and they can go and read. What we bring to the market and the way we think about our business is actually on more like a consumer business. So we count active users, because if you make the true north of your company of a customer that is being active in the platform and is deriving value from it, everything else sorts out. You know what I mean? Because you know your unique economics per user. You know how much they're paying you. And if you keep that user active and successful, then you know you're going to retain him forever. So your LTV calculation just gets a lot better.
It's also irrational. You could argue it's infinite at some points.
That's precisely right. So I actually like to optimize for active user, repeat visits, actions taken, value added, meetings booked. So success metrics on a per user basis, because that keeps them coming back and they talk to other users. And then I have a handful of ratios, right? So now if I monotonically increase my self-sufficiency over time, grow my active user base over time, all of a sudden I got growth on top of growth on top of growth, which makes it a very attractive business.
Yep. So just to be clear, I'm curious the economics around how you look at your current customer base and how you're able to expand them in year one versus bring on new customers. I mean, right now, what's your pure expansion revenue on a contract year over year?
Oh, it's well over 100%.
Yeah. Wow. So you're more than doubling. You're more than doubling ACVs.
That's exactly right. So on a cohort basis, our job is to land as fast as we can in the smallest team that we can, and then expand. So the word that we have here is make him a customer. Yep. The moment you make him a customer, the magic shows up. And then we can then do all sorts of things across the entire sort of go-to-market team of our customers, and give him, limited pilots or get him on the platform early. There's a lot of other mechanics that you can now employ once you're a customer that are more viral, that require a lot less per new customer than if you go and land a big account. You see what I mean? So the way that you actually manage better performance on a customer acquisition basis over time is by reducing your land and accelerating your expand.
Yep.
You see what I mean? And that's how we think about it. And this is why active user and a successful user is such a key metric for us. Because the moment we do that, the expansion gets a lot cheaper over time.
Yep. Because your lifetime value goes way up.
That's exactly right.
Yep. Tell me about I know you don't want to focus on land, you want to focus on expand, but what does it take you to land the first customer? What's your CAC look like? Or if you don't really care about CAC, sometimes it's hard to look at across cohorts. What do you like to optimize payback period for? How fast do you get your money back?
So everybody, less than a year, of course.
Okay.
And most people, we are right now, a little bit north of a year, like 11 months or 13 months or so.
Yep.
But we're bringing that back to less than a year. And again, the trick is to monotonically increase the performance of your rep while increasing reducing the friction for that expansion. You know what I mean? So what do you have to do to the core app to be more serviceable across customer facing functions? And how do you get that viral loop going within that account?
With that in mind, sorry. I was going to say, with that in mind, your account executives, once they land the account, do they hold that account over the life of the account? And do you increase do you have a quota for expansion on those accounts depending on how old those accounts are they're managing?
Depending on the size of the account. So if the account has a distributed sales team, that it varies per line of business. So for instance, take Adobe, a customer. Yep. Adobe has a sales team for each of their line of businesses. They have one for Adobe Creative Cloud. They have one for Adobe Marketing Cloud. They have one for each of these clouds, and they're completely separate from the other account. So for those kind of accounts, we have the AE sort of continue to go and prospect into new areas of the account. And even though that costs you more on a per active user basis, because the account has so many potential seats, it makes sense for us. But if you take a smaller land, like a company that only everybody's in the same building, then the AE sort of gets paid for the first year period expansion, and then after that, it's all the customer success manager.
Interesting, which helps your economics there, because obviously you're not paying a commission on that after that point.
That's exactly right.
So it's incentivizing those account managers to upsell as much as they possibly can and drive usage as much as they possibly can in that first year.
That's exactly right. But I also incentivize them to close the account quick with whatever they have. Because I don't want the account executives to go and look for more seats. I want them to land quick and expand quick.
Well, how are they expanding quick? What are the other ways they can expand besides upselling more seats? They just add additional product lines?
Additional product lines, finding out, adjacent sources of business, working with internal teams to make sure that the deployment goes right, to make sure that the account is mapped correctly when they send it over. So usually a dream account is one that you have the entire sort of like, coach and champion and user and everybody in between, and the decision makers and everybody in between sort of well mapped out by the time it's sold and handed over to the implementation team. And then the implementation team can do and expand very, very quickly. Yep. And then all the account manager has to do is make interest and continue to milk that account. You see what I mean?
It's clear you come from a systems background, which is why I really enjoy this. And you've given a lot of, I think, great tactical pieces of advice. I can see where the Amazon overlap is coming into Outreach. Quick question. When was the last time you answered a support email?
About 2.5 months ago. So
good.
I like to sit with my support team at least once a quarter. I'm going to try to do it once a month and actually take a true difficult email.
That's your version of the Bezos Zoom.
Precisely.
Yeah. I love it. That's great.
That you're running here.
Yeah, that's great. Before we wrap up with the famous five, I want to make sure I get this clear because I want to track your progress over the time. You think you'll double this year up to well north of 10 million a quarter, which means you're doing around 5 million a quarter today. Are those generally accurate?
We're doing more than that.
More than 5 million a quarter today. So that's the reason I ask is it becomes harder and harder to get 100% year-over-year growth once you get to your size. So I'm wondering if your team and you are happy and excited and your board at 80 or 70% year-over-year growth.
So a lot of people use the rule of 40. I think it's 40% margin, 40% year-over-year growth, and it needs to add up to some other number.
Yeah.
We looked at more as what is the available addressable market for us and how fast can we capture that? The problem where we are is we're actually building a category. So there isn't such a thing as beating too early in an account, and then you're beating your head against a wall because you're not penetrating that account faster. So the idea is just finding sort of the soft spots where we make sense, meaning the account is educated enough. They already had a CRM deployed. They're already looking for the next avenue of growth, and that's when we come in. So we can grow past that because then we'll be, spending money foolishly in educating the market.
Yep.
And we can grow slower than that because then we're not capturing the opportunity. You see what I mean?
Yep,
so it's not as what kind of growth you're going to have. It's really sensing out where the market edges are and sort of operating at that level.
Yep. All right, Manny, makes good sense. Let's wrap up here with the famous five. Quick answers. Number one, what's the last business book you read?
The last business book I read, I'm a huge fan of high output management. I read that almost every other month.
Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
I always study what Bezos is doing. I always study what Benioff is doing. Those are my two favorite CEOs. If
you're doing south of 40 million in AR right now and Benioff comes to you and offers you a 10x multiple, so almost $500 million, do you sell the company?
Only if I get to run Salesforce.
Good answer. Number three, what's your favorite online tool for building the business besides your own?
Frankly, Google Docs. I took this habit from Amazon in which I only accept long form documents. I don't do PowerPoints.
That's smart.
You need to explain your thought completely with charts and numbers and premises and conclusions and everything in between. So for me, it's a well elaborated Word doc with numbers in it.
Number four, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Between 4 and 6.
Okay, that's pretty healthy. And what's your situation, Manny? Married, single, have kids?
Married with kids.
How many kiddos you got?
3.
Are they? Oh my gosh, are they young?
I got him across the board. So I got a 1.5-year-old, I got a 12-year-old, and I got a 20-year-old. That's
good. So you can make the older one take care of the younger one and save you and the missus some time, huh?
That's right.
And how old are you?
Well, I am 45.
All right. Last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
I wish I would have started a company earlier.
There you guys have it from Manny. He would have started his company sooner. He got his really cut his teeth inside of Amazon, watching Bezos go in and zoom in and really understand every detail of the business. Then got in and wasn't really excited about it, but learned a lot at Microsoft before jumping out teaming up with some buddies in Seattle, coding at bars, launched a company called Group Talent, realized that wasn't the real product that was taking off, pivoted, kept the investors for supporting him early, is now building Outreach.io, sales engagement platform, having a lot of success. They are now serving over 2,200 logos, doing north of 5 million a quarter, hoping to double and hit, call it 10 million a quarter by the end of 2018. Really healthy economics, focusing less and less over time on landing and more on expanding. Manny, thank you for taking us to the top.
See you, man.